qua non ci deve essere più niente. Bisogna cominciare subito. Coraggio, al lavoro, buttate giù. Dico bene, dottore?
Sì, grazie. Arrivederci, ragazzi. Ci vediamo in un prossimo film.
Lo speriamo.
Ciao, marinai.
Welcome to Cinema Italia, a podcast dedicated to the world of Italian cinema. Presented by me, John Bleasdale. Everybody, and welcome to Cinema Italia, a new podcast which is all about Italian films. My name is John Bleasdale. I'm a writer and film critic, and today I'm going to be talking to Felix Van Groeningen, who, with his co-director Charlotte Vandermeersch, have a new film which is just coming out in the UK today and in the US a little bit later. The film is called Eight Mountains. It's based on the novel by Paolo Cognetti, and it's a beautiful film. I saw it at Cannes, and you can read my sight and sound review. I will link to it in the show notes. I talked to Felix about Italian cinema generally, as well as his own film. If you enjoy the episode, please remember to like and subscribe. Try to spread the word as far as you can, and you can follow me on Twitter if you like, at Dr. Jonty, DRJONTY. But before you do any of that, enjoy the conversation. How did you come by this novel?
It came to me in various ways. Somehow the universe was telling me I had to turn this into a movie, but it didn't seem. I don't seem the obvious choice as a director, as I live in Belgium. I wasn't speaking Italian and didn't seem to have a connection with the mountains or whatever. But what happened was that somebody pitched me or talked to me about this book and said, like, maybe it's really something for you. And I bought it and I started reading it. And I put it aside very quickly because it at that time I was really looking for a project, but it didn't make sense for me to go and make that film or turn that book into a film. I mean, it seemed so far-fetched. But then a year later, somebody who was affiliated with Italian production company called me and pitched me this story. And I knew I had the book. And I was like, okay, now it's more directly coming to me. Maybe this is really something for me. And so I started rereading it and finished it in one go, more or less, and really fell for it and immediately realized that I was the right person, and also that because the way it was presented to me was like, maybe you can turn this story into you could relocate it and turn it into an English language movie, and I really loved it. But for me, it was also clear that the book was so authentic that it had to be done in Italian, although I wasn't speaking Italian. So that also immediately was really clear that I wanted to dive into this story, but with everything
intact, the language and the setting and everything.
Yeah, because it's afterwards I started reading more, and I got to know the writer and where he lives, which is actually very close to the place where we shot the movie, and it's all, and you feel that in the book, it's all really inspired by real people and real places. And so I think I felt that, and that was why why it moved me, but also why I thought I could make it. I can just, go there and get to know those people, get to know these places, and in that sense, make it mine.
Did you have a connection with Italian cinema before this?
Not specifically, to be honest. Although, I mean, some of my favorite films are Italian, but they also have a huge cinematography. So it would be weird to not have that, I guess. So no, it really was the story that spoke to me, the characters, the idea of shooting something in the mountains. And I also do really just love the idea of spending time in Italy, of learning Italian. Because my girlfriend and I, with who I co-wrote and co-directed the movie, we had gone to Italy quite a few times on holiday.
Mm.
It was making the movie was also the perfect excuse to learn Italian.
The film is set over towards the western side of the Alps. Is that correct?
Yeah, close to the Swiss border. So Val d'Aosta is stretches out from the Mont Blanc until, I don't know, like the Swiss border, and there's a couple of 4,000-meter peaks there.
Yeah, I'm over on the east. I'm the beginning of the Dolomites, so I'm a bit further towards Venice and Trento. Trento's a nearby city.
If you read the book, I don't know if you read the book, but parents actually come more from that side. And so when they were younger, they used to go to the Dolomites. And I had visited the Dolomites before also. And it was also during the period where I read the book that I started to be in touch myself more with the higher mountains, because I've had a history of going back and forth to a little village in France ever since I was a kid. My parents used to build a house there, used to have a house, but they built it themselves. And then I always went back and forth, and so I that's part which is also in the movie. I knew very much, like this idea of coming from the city and going to a very remote place, have a real connection there, but also not living there, going back and forth, but having that place as a place where you can ground, and you can always go back to. But it's in the center of France, and the mountains around it are a lot lower, but it has the same atmosphere, I guess, in the sense where it's very remote from everything. It feels very pure. The people there feel very, very pure. But I started to get to know the higher mountains and was really in awe with them. And so the movie made us really also gave us the opportunity to explore it in an incredible manner, because we hiked, and we took helicopters to visit the peaks where we eventually shot, and we slept in mountain huts, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
And I mean, you use that Academy aspect ratio really well it's one of the things that I loved about the film, because obviously it seems very counterintuitive. You've got these mountains, you've got this wonderful panorama. This should be widescreen, but you're stubborn.
No, it's actually yes and no. It seems counterintuitive, but we were figuring out how we wanted to shoot this movie, and at some point I saw pictures of locations where we were going to shoot in like a square ratio, not exactly the 133 in which we shot in the end, but it made me realize that mountains work really well because they're vertical, and once you see the peak, that's all that matters. If you have a wide screen, you can have a peak, but then it becomes like very, boring, I guess, left and right, and less exciting. Whereas this idea, you see the peak, and left and right, the thing you're missing in your frame, you fill it in somehow, and so it made the mountains work, and it's a great aspect ratio to do portraits. So people work really well in that frame, for me it was also in a weird way evaluating this aspect ratio, because when I started making films in film school, this was the aspect ratio you were stuck to when you shot with a video camera or when you shot with 16 millimeter. And I didn't like it because I wanted to make cinema, and this idea of widescreen really was very exciting to me. And now with this film, like actually rediscovering it and seeing that there's a lot more opportunities within that frame that actually make it more exciting than widescreen. I mean, not for everything, of course, but for our film, it totally made sense.
And it's so great to see Luca and Alessandro reunited, because one of our episodes that I've already recorded, but will go out after this one, is about Non essere cattivo, Don't Be Bad, the first film that they made together.
Great. It's how we got to know them too, I guess, by from the beginning on, with the Italian producers and casting directors, their names were on the table. It took us a long time to eventually cast them, and everything had to do with the fact that they were, everybody thought they should play up front, thought they should play the other role, themselves included. So, and that for us was not what we were looking for. But it took like a while to realize that the opposite would work. And it was, part of a big casting process, which we also used, to get to know Italian cinema better. So it wasn't like a lost time, I guess, or lost energy. I mean, it's what we had to do to get to the best result. But during our preparation and while we were meeting actors, we were watching a lot of films, and it was absolutely one of the films that stood out, that we loved, and that they're very proud of, and that made them want to like work together in another movie at some point. But they always said that they wanted to find the right project. And again, it was funny because when we both met them in the beginning of the process, they both mentioned that, and they thought this story was good for them. But again, in the opposite roles, which was just less exciting, or felt less something we wanted to. It was less exciting. It was more obvious, and we were looking for other layers that were part of, the book, of how we, wanted to make the film work, and we're more mysterious, I guess.
Yeah, again, it's a sort of like I didn't notice it, but now you mention it, yeah, of course, that would be the obvious typecasting, would be the other way around. So this makes it much more interesting. How's your Italian in terms of, were you communicating in English or were you communicating in Italian?
It's okay, I guess. I mean, I manage, but I'm also I'm a bit nervous about it. When I haven't spoken in a while, I always feel very nervous. But that was good to, also to be with two to direct. My girlfriend, Charlotte, she's really a lot better in languages and fearless, I guess. So she would, jump in and and do it, and I would like lag behind. When we do interviews, the two of us, I'm always like, yeah, my Italian's it's so. She's like, no, it's great. But she did a bunch of interviews in Italian, whereas I wasn't like feeling secure enough to do that.
That's a big ask. Doing interviews in Italian is a big ask, I think.
Look, it's something we learned along the way, and I'm really not saying I speak it, but enough to, to be able to, to work with the actors, to figure out, if the dialogue was working, or even rewriting it. It could be, it always was like revised, or we found help, by the writer or by other people, the actors, to make sure it was really good, but we felt comfortable enough. And that was the most important, I guess. Absolutely.
So you said earlier you were watching other Italian films as a sort of preparation in terms of casting. And also, it strikes me that this is a very Italian film in the sense as well of this idea of male friendship, which is, runs through a lot of Italian cinema. What were the films that you were looking at to prepare for this film, for Eight Mountains?
Look, first of all, I do want to make clear that I feel also sometimes very insecure to talk about, Italian cinema or French cinema, even Belgian cinema, as I don't consider myself a real cinephile.
Sure.
In the sense that I don't watch that much films. I have a limited concentration span somehow. No, but it's just my way of working. When I fall in love with something, I will watch it over and over and over again. And that's how I learn from films. That's how how I appreciate film. It's also it's part of my monomanic personality, I guess. When I make a film too, I'm not doing anything beside it. I just make my film, and I will, just put everything in it. And I'm not watching films when I'm making a film, usually. Also, that said, so we watched really a lot of things in order, to find actors, et cetera, et cetera. As said, Non Essere Cattivo stood out. There's something very funny about it, and gritty at the same time. And the chemistry between them there also is it's very real. It's a movie that really surprised us.
It would make an amazing double bill as well.
Yeah,
Non
yeah,
essere cattivo, Eight Mountains.
absolutely, because it's so different at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really also, I mean, I have to say I saw a lot of films that interested me last. I saw a lot of great acting and a lot of great actors, but a lot of films that interested me last. One of the films that really stuck with me was maybe not a very known one, but La Nostra Vita, I really loved, with Elio Germano, which is also an amazing actor. I really love Dogman,
Ah, yeah, Matteo Garrone.
Matteo Garrone's film, which is really harsh in a way and also very funny and like very particular. I loved Alice Rohracher's movies, her peculiar, very real.
She's one of the most exciting people working in Italian films at the
Yeah.
moment. I think her films are... It's interesting watching some of the women who are directing pictures, because Emma Dante and Roaca and Laura Samani, who did Piccolo Corpo, was debuted last year, was great.
I didn't see that.
I think 2 years ago.
But Alicia's films are very, yeah, it's a very specific combination of something that feels very real and yet very dreamy and very mysterious, and so it's fascinating cinema. So I'm really looking forward to her next movie.
Yeah, I think it's coming in Cannes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's playing in Cannes. Yeah. What else? Favolace was a movie that came out around then that was really surprising in Italy, apparently, but also, yeah.
It's a sort of very, very striking film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what about a favorite Italian film from the past? Maybe one of those films that you were saying you watch over and over again.
I'll come to that. Something I rewatched and a couple of times as I started working on this project was Meglio Gioventù.
Ah, yes, that's a fantastic film.
Yeah, well, so film, or what is it? Film series, 2-3 hour films, or TV series.
That strange transition between TV and film.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess it came out in 2003 or 4, and I went to see it in the cinema, and then 6 months later, the second part came out, and it did it very, very well in Belgium. It was something that where at a time where like things in the cinema could really get still get a lot of time and find their audience, and where the word of mouth was really making or breaking a film. And like this, I think this film, or these 2 parts of that film, played in the cinema over a year, I think. And actually, our film, I have to, just a little side note, is doing really well in Belgium. I mean, it came out in December, so it's been a while. It's still in cinemas, so it has that same effect. So I'm really proud of that.
It has long legs.
But Meglio Gioventù, I revisited because I remember being very moved by it. I mean, it's really epic also. It's really about the people over a long period of time. It gets, obviously it gets time to tell that story. You see people aging. It's very Italian in the sense that it mixes like this epic story of those couple of people with Italian history, and when I rewatched it still felt very. It didn't feel aged or anything. It felt really still very solid storytelling, very well acted, very, very moving. We actually pursued one of the actors, but it didn't work out. And we met with Jasmine Trinca also because of that. And she wasn't available, but she would have otherwise maybe have been part of our film. It was great to rewatch that and to, in a sense, for me to see that I had, that I had an easy access to that in my mind. Like it made me feel close to Italian cinema somehow.
Mm.
I guess it persuaded me also that I could also take on the Eight Mountains somehow.
It's my daughter's favorite film as well. It's my daughter's.
Oh, yeah?
I've got two daughters, and that film. We actually had a conversation because I was saying, I'm doing this podcast. What's your favorite Italian film? And they said both of them went, "Oh, Meglio Gioventù."
Yeah.
And they rewatch it on a regular, like every year, more or less. They rewatch it.
Well, I would also, I mean, to enter maybe more into specifics, what really is surprising in how, how they tell that story is how they jump in time. And obviously, the mountains also is chronological. It's the span of the story is like 30, 40 years, as is in the case with Meglio Gioventù, and what operates the same way. Again, Meglio Gioventù is way longer, and it's a series, so it's a little different. But the fact that they always, every cut forward is a jump forward in time, and sometimes it's 10 minutes later, sometimes it's 1 year, sometimes it's 10 years, and then you have to figure it out as you're moving forward. So, and some things that are important aren't shown at all, and you understand as you go along. But there's something about that relentlessness of time that starts to become something very moving, that takes you along as a viewer, and that makes you start to feel the melancholy of what you've seen, and just life pushing you forward and not ever being able to go back. Because most of my films, I've played a lot with time, and I used a lot of flashbacks and even very used deconstruction as a tool to tell a story. And here, especially also with revisiting Meglio Gioventù, it was clear that we wanted to tell the story very, very chronological.
There's a real power in that. I remember there's a scene in Meglio Gioventù which is in a train station. And it's about people getting on the train or not getting on the train, and the train is going to go, and it's heartbreaking because because of how the film has established its grammar, that if they don't get on the train, they're not going to see each other for a while, and things are going to change, and there's no going back. The film will not flash back to something that we can sort of, that's it, you've seen that person, it's gone,
Yeah, which I guess makes the end so moving, because of how it's set up. With one character who's like sort of reappearing.
And also, I suppose there's a friendship at the heart of Meglio Gioventù, and your film has this friendship, which is just. I mean, it is also attached to history, because it is also about changing Italy, changing ideas of how to survive in a modern world. Can we keep our identity, or do we need to let go of it?
Yeah, but it's obviously a lot more rooted in the in the big historical events.
Sure, you have the sort of terrorism and the Anni di Piombo, the years of lead, so called, in Meglio Gioventù. Yeah, I still see a sort of historical movement, even if it's not those big events, even in Eight Mountains.
Yeah, no, or just like a small story in a bigger world, and how it moves you, because you spend so much time with those people, and you start to really love them. And there's really, I guess what's comparable to is there's no cynicism, or not a lot. I mean, they're very, very beautiful people, very inspiring, although with very dark hearts. One of the characters commits suicide, and so there's a really dark side, very lonely. It's not explained as well. Like, so there's something very beautiful, and indeed similar.
Yeah, it's kind of that refusal to be obvious as well in that sort of stuff. We're not going to explain everything or put it all on a plate for you.
Yeah. So, and I guess other films that were important for me. I mean, Fellini is someone who's been important to me, I guess. But also it took a long time for me to really appreciate his cinema. It wasn't love at first sight. It stayed very distant for me.
What was the film that cracked it? What was the film where you went, oh, now I get it. This is what I
It
like.
was 8.5, which I saw over and over and over. So it is that film. Although I have to say my favorite is really La Strada. Yeah, which I saw later, even not so long ago, a couple of years ago. Because I think really because it's there's something really fascinating in Fellini's cinema and his trademark films also, where it combines so many weird things and it's dreamlike and you don't know where you are and still you keep going, and all of that is something I actually really like and find inspiring and has moved me in ways that only cinema can. But again, it for me it also stays at a distance in a way, and that's why I'm less moved by it, I guess. And then so La Strada anyway is it's very straightforward.
There's a big emotional center to La Strada in the performances.
Yeah, and a rawness which I think is amazing, and yet it also has that extremely that cinematic quality. I mean, he's an incredibly gifted filmmaker. That's really, really clear. But yeah,
Fellini, not bad. That's the headline.
Not bad.
Yeah. 3 stars.
No, but it's strange how, for me, to be super, super honest, that it's like it's not obvious. Also, like it's not obvious yet. I keep going back to it. Whereas someone like Cassavetes was really, for me, a lot more. I mean, that was super obvious. Like I saw one film and I was in love with it. I saw all of his films. I saw it over and over and over again.
Oh, you see, I would say that with Cassavetes, it took me a while. I have the opposite feeling with Cassavetes. It took me. I watched a few. I think I watched Faces, and then I think Killing of a Chinese Bookie was the one that I see what he's doing now, and then I could rewatch all the other ones and go with it. But yeah, because Cassavetes took me a couple of films to get into.
Yeah.
What appealed to you about Cassavetes then?
The acting, of course. You always have the feeling that you're just there with them in that scene. Where it's going to is not really clear, and that's what's exciting about it in the bigger picture. But yeah, it just feels super, super real and uncomfortable because of that, and exciting. And then some of his films just have incredidly emotional climaxes, right? Not obvious ones, but very, very emotional.
So is there an Italian filmmaker that you sort of felt closer to than Fellini? I mean, I really get your point with Fellini as well, by the way, that you can sort of admire him.
But I can honestly say that La Strada for me is something that I will watch over and over and over. So it's not, and I read a lot about Fellini, so it's also, I think I do totally understand it, and I always will go back to it, and I will keep learning from it in a sense, I think. So it's not it would be there even if we weren't talking about just Italian cinema, just to frame it. Another film that was that I will always think about when I think about Italian cinema is Ladri di Bicicletti, the bicycle thieves.
De Sica. That's a film I saw on the big screen. The first time I saw it was on the big screen. I think it was a Venice Film Festival. They did a sort of a print of it and watched it. That's an amazingly operatic film, isn't it? Yeah. So what appeals to you about the bicycle thieves?
I think this idea that something that starts very small becomes very big. Yeah, of course. It just feels very real also, I guess. Yeah.
I'm interested in how you're sort of looking at something that's sort of like some of these Italian movies like Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thieves, and it's from probably the beginning of the golden age of Italian cinema, that neo-realist explosion with Rossellini a little bit before and others coming afterwards. But they're turning their cameras to sort of poverty. They're turning their cameras to ordinary people with really small struggles. I need a bicycle to keep my job. And the relationship's necessarily obvious either. It's a father and son who are just muddling their way through the city trying to find a solution. I mean, it's a heartbreaking film, but it's also very. What surprised me when I first saw it was how sort of theatrical it is as well. Even though it's non-professional actors shot in a ruined city, it's also sort of got this beautiful grandeur about it.
And how so? I don't remember it that way necessarily. So
just even the way the places are shot. You're looking at places. I think I remember a place where they go to a sort of, I think it might be like the first bicycle shop where he goes to get his bicycle. It's like a sort of rag and bone shop sort of place. And it's just huge. It's just got these shelves full of stuff. And it's just filmed with such a sense of, again, talking about that ratio, the 4:3 ratio and the verticalness of it, You get the idea that going up these stairs to get this stuff, and it's just sometimes we look at neorealism and we think of sort of austerity and poverty, but that might be the subject, but it's not necessarily the style.
Yeah, you feel in everything that it's like life seeping in, right? That it's.
Absolutely, and there's a sort of wealth to it. Obviously, not an economic wealth, but there's a wealth to the detail and to the sense of it. I mean, it's partly to do with just Italy as a country, where even a very poor area will have, a little chapel from the 15th century round the corner. So whatever you're filming in front of it, just there's something amazing just there.
Yeah, but the film that's. I made this film called The Misfortunates, and then people often ask me, was Brutti Sporchi e Cattivi an influence? And then I saw it, and I guess you could say the same about that movie, but that felt for me very, very staged, the dirtiness and everything. So with that film, I didn't have that connection at all.
Right. I mean, it must be something that's kind of, it's funny because you were saying earlier, you're not really a cinephile, but I've met a lot of directors who they're kind of protective of their own vision. So they don't want to be watching too many films and contaminate themselves with somebody else's vision,
I don't know what it is. It's I have a hard time going to film festivals because I'm always lost. Like, what do I want to see? Too many options, and then you're in this theater and you think like, oh, I should have chosen the other movie. Or you see a great film and then you're like, oh no, I have to get to work. I have to work on my own film. and I have a hard time like sticking around to see a second or third one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was Werner Herzog says, he watches 3 or 4 films a year because he doesn't want to have them in his head. He wants to make his films.
Yeah. No, for me, it's not wanting. It's just not always being able to.
You were looking at films more recently because of casting. So you're looking at more recent Italian films. I mean, how do you feel the Italians from that experience? How do you feel like Italian cinema is at the moment? Because there seems to be a big gap between, Fellini and the present day. There seems, it's a little bit of a problem perhaps for Italian filmmakers that they've got almost like there are too many good directors from the 40s, 50s and 60s. And it's a little bit, there's an anxiety of influence, if you like.
Yeah, but you have Moretti also, you have Guadagnino, you have Paolo Sorrentino. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, doing their own thing and on a very high level. Bellocchio is still making things, right?
Yeah, he's going to be in Cannes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know it well enough to say. I did have the feeling that it was also what we got from when we talk to producers and the casting directors, like it's really a lot of the same pool of actors, and they're all great actors, but that need to be in a movie in order to get it made. And so that system is a bit, I don't know, it's not helping to give new talent a lot of chances, and it's a bit closed, I would say. It's not like, in that sense, I think it's a bit conservative, and it could take bigger risks. But yeah, like in Italy, like in the rest of the world, I mean, it's, the industry is changing, and it's hard, to get people to theaters. And so there is a reason why this is the case. But it's that's something that we noticed, that we just always saw the same faces again. And they also heard that, we really had the freedom to choose whoever we wanted, but they were really happy that we in the end chose Luca Marinelli and Alessandro Borghi, who are very well respected and bankable actors.
How do you feel the Italians have taken the movie, sort of knowing that you're coming from outside as directors?
It was incredible. I mean, they were super open. I was really, really surprised. There was no, it started with the producers, but then rest of the crew and all the actors that we met that wanted to meet because of my previous films. I made a film called Broken Circle Breakdown, which actually did quite well in Italy, and so
yeah, it's quite well all over the world.
Yeah, but so somehow apparently in Italy was what people told me, that actors really loved this movie, and because of that we wanted to meet. And so, but it was incredible to sit across Italy's finest and talk very openly, just to get to know each other, just talking about the project and see if we could, maybe collaborate or not. And it was incredible. There never was any doubt. We never felt any doubt, us being not Italian, to take on this story. So that was amazing. And throughout the process, I have to say that was the case. And when the movie came out too, I mean, really, the movie did incredibly well in Italy. It was embraced very much, and we got nominated 14 times for the David di Donatello, which are taking place a couple of weeks from now. So it does mean that also the industry really embraced us as filmmakers there. So that's surprising. I don't think it happened very quickly in Belgium. So it's been amazing. That said, I guess it's something I never realized, but it's something Paolo Cognetti, the writer of the novel, said. In Italy, they don't necessarily have like a history of making films in the mountains, although the mountains are really a big part of Italy. For a lot of Italians, it feels very foreign. Like it feels, it's not necessarily part of their country. And so yeah, maybe that's why it also made sense that I made the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And also for a lot of sort of budgetary reasons, it's you go to the mountains, it's going to be expensive. You're going to have, days lost because of weather and things like that. Did you have any trouble in terms of the terrain and in terms of the conditions?
It was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It was challenging, absolutely. But we never, we knew it was going to be hard. We also said we need to embrace it, but we will, we want to make it as real as possible. So we really want to go up that peak for real. We want to shoot on the glacier for real. So the question from the beginning was always like, how are we going to make that happen? And, I guess it did make, well, no, I'm sure it did make the budget grow as we went along the way. But we were followed by the production company, and I mean, they understood our choices, and they helped us to make it happen. I guess what caused me the most stress is never knowing if the next day we're really going to be able to get onto the mountain or not, and that we needed like a couple of backup plans, and that and that we had to call off sometimes like last minute, and find solutions like the whole time as we were the budget grew a little, but I never had the feeling, and I'm also someone who wants to stick to the budget, so it didn't feel like we have endless possibilities to keep on going. So in order to make all that work with also the schedules of the actors, etc., and because it takes place over the 4 seasons, so it was that made it complicated. At the same time, I really, we shot more or less chronologically, and it for me was incredible to see how we learned along the way. Started shooting in the beginning of the summer, and then we finished beginning of the winter, and we shot in blocks, and in between those blocks we were already editing, and we could revisit what we had shot, and then pick up some things or reevaluate or rethink how we would want to do some of the the peak scenes or the mountain scenes. And I guess we when we saw something was working, we could really defend it and also push it and take it one step further. And it worked out. So
there was never a point where it was getting so difficult you thought, let's call the film 4 Mountains and we'll half the budget. No. I didn't despair, but I was really happy when we finished the shoot. It had been felt ages. Right. Yeah. Listen, Felix, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for joining me. And would you? Obviously, you're going to have loads of other offers now, and you've made your English language film as well as Belgian film. What does the future hold? Would you do another Italian language film, or are you off into the world?
Yeah, it's all open, and I guess I won't. It would be strange to make Italian movies from now on.
Eccentric as a choice.
No, I made 5 films in Belgium, and I started making films with my family, with my friends, with my girlfriend who was playing the lead, and sort of every project, every film, I grew more comfortable in getting out of my comfort zone, and so making a film in English was something. Then in Italian. I would have never made the 8 Mountains if I wouldn't have had made an English language movie, because that felt easier as a first film, although it was in a way harder to make because it was in Hollywood, etc., etc. But like an easier film to do out of my own country, and then now in another language. So I don't know. All everything's possible. There's something very liberating in that. Just see whatever comes at you, and then to be able to dream. But I haven't decided yet. I think I want to just write something personal and then see who is the best actor, and then decide on the language at that moment.
Brilliant. That's such a, it feels like such a wide open thing for you.
Yeah. Or make a remake of the 8 Mountains in Japan. That would be exciting.
There you go. You could just remake 8 Mountains all over the world, just change place, and it'll be like it's a straight. Why does he keep remaking the film? He did it once already. It sounds wonderful. I'm excited to see what kind. Then I'll have to do other podcasts about other countries so that you can come back on and talk about them. Thank you so much, Felix, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the great chat, and thank you for the lover of our film.
Arrivederci ragazzi, ci vediamo in un prossimo film.
Lo speriamo.